Hey guys, and welcome to a quick tutorial on how to do battle damage and weathering. As you can see here, this is an Imperial Fist that I painted quite some time ago, and I'm going to try and show you today how I achieved this result. As you can see here, by doing this method and adding battle damage, it really does make it look like the Marine has been field tested and is not fresh off the press. And everyone has their own preferences, whether or not they like a shiny new army or whether or not they like a realistic sort of a battle hardened army. Personally, I prefer the battle hardened, however I do see the appeal of nice, bright and shiny. So without further ado, I will introduce today the model I'll be working on. You might recognize him from some of my previous videos. He is a Soul Drinker that I introduced before. And as you can see, he's quite nice, crisp and clean, so today we're going to battle damage him just a little. First, you'll be starting off with a fine detail brush. Now this really does depend on what chapter you've chosen and what base color your Marine is. Whatever your base color is, you'll be starting in the same range. As an example here, we had Xerius Purple and Genestealer Purple that I worked with to achieve this armor result, starting at Xerius and working its way up towards Genestealer. So basically what you need is the lightest color that you worked with, that is what you'll be starting with today. So basically all you do is get a small amount on a fine detail brush. Now it's worthwhile noting that if it's not light enough for you, you can always mix in white or just simply go up to a lighter shade. However, today I'll be sticking with Genestealer Purple. Basically what you need to do with this method is, the first step is just to, I guess you could say it is to paint scratch or scuff marks using this light purple. As you can see here, I'm starting with the hand. I'm just painting what would appear to be, say, a scratch from, say, a combat knife or maybe a bit of shrapnel that has gone past and left a scratch in the armor. As you know, when you scratch something with paint, often it can go through the paint and lighten it up and go through the primer and straight into the metal, so on and so forth, depending on the depth of the scratch or damage. A good way to think about this is to try to picture which areas on the armor would see the most amount of traffic, which would be used the most and which would receive the most amount of damage. For the purpose of this tutorial, I've chosen the fingertips, the gauntlets, the elbows, the knee pads, all these high traffic areas that would be on a Marine. Over here I'm going to show you an example of how I do, say, claw marks and scratches. As you can see, I've picked a large flat panel on the leg as it is easier to show you in this tutorial. I try to replicate the same effect to a slighter degree on the helmet later on, as you will see, but basically it's really the same sort of method as the rest of the scratching. You really just want to try to make a scratch or wear and tear mark depending on your preference, in the lighter color, in the direction that whatever hit him was moving. Usually this starts at a finer point and ends at a larger, rounder, deeper scratch. Although that said, this can vary. In other cases it can start as a big hit and then it can go down to a narrow point as whatever's hit him, such as a bullet or piece of shrapnel, has scratched off and ricocheted away. And here, as you can see, I've started to do the scratch on the helmet. As I mentioned previously, it's really the same method. It's also important to bear in mind at this point that the taller raised edges tend to get hit first. As previously mentioned, with high traffic areas, here I'm just going to touch on the other elbow pad once again. And just go through the model, adding other various scratches here and there. Basically you just need to run around the model and add this layering of scratching wherever you intend to put damage. Now this is actual scratch damage, not necessarily dirt, which I'll show you later on. You can get dirt smudging and all these sorts of things, which I'll show you later on, but at this stage all you really want to do is go around the model and in all these high traffic areas or wherever you would like to see physical damage that's scratched down to the metal, all you need to do is this step in all those areas. Next up in the process we have Lead Belcher. It is a dark metallic silver, and basically you'll be replicating the same technique from the previous step. Anywhere where you have put the lighter paint, you'll now need to revisit these areas and put a slightly thinner layer within that previous layer. Basically you are just looking to leave a very thin slight outer rim of the previous color, as basically what the effect you're trying to achieve here is a gradient going inwards from the regular armor to the lighter color, to the darker metal to a lighter metal, just to show the depth of the scratch. So once again, all you need to do really is just go over all the parts that you had before and just put a slightly thinner layer of the silver within all those areas. Just as a side note before moving on, I'm going to show you how to add the same effect to areas of other colors such as squad markings. Really, it is the same process. All you need to do is again get the lightest color that you worked with, or if you just used one flat color, go to the next one up or mix another color up. And basically it is just the same process. All you need to do is put the exact same scratch, the same as you started with the purple in this case. As you can see here for this example, I'm trying to do a scratch that goes from the bone squad marking all the way down to the regular armor. So what I did there was I did the exact same process that you've seen before, where I did the lighter bone color going out to a lighter purple color. Now next up, what you will need is a lighter metallic silver. This really does help to show the true depth of the scratch or damage. Now basically it's the exact same process, you just replicate it for a third time here. All you need to do is just put a very thin layer using a fine detail brush in all the previously damaged areas that you've added the darker silver. This next step really is an optional extra. I'm going to try to attempt to show you how to do areas that have been long damaged. So here we're going to add a bit of rust using an old standard brush. This is Riser Rust. It is a dry paint produced by Citadel and Games Workshop, however regular orange paint will do. Basically you just want to get a small amount on your brush, as you can see there, and you just want to dab it lightly on the area. For the purpose of this tutorial I'm going to use the hand and a few other areas. Basically all you're trying to do is to discolor the silver as a sort of like a rusty orange. Now the purpose for this is really to give a part of damage the look that it's been damaged for quite some time and started to rust over. Next up we'll be grabbing Agrax Earth Shade. This is basically just a brown wash that you'll be dabbing lightly over some of the areas that you scratched before that you want to add some dirt and grime to. Basically all you do is just dab it on with your paintbrush. Don't worry about it being too smudgy or too dirty, because that's of course the point. You don't really need it to look neat at this stage. Now you want to go over this quite a few times, go over the same areas, just to reinforce how dark it comes out and to really add some depth to it. Now as another optional extra, while you have the brown wash out, why not go over the bolter and other metal areas such as this, just to give it that really dirty used look. Only takes a few seconds but makes all the difference. Next up, I'm going to show you how to make some dirt patches, such as mud flicking up onto the armor or just general dirty rainwater for an example. Now here as an example, I've picked the light squad marking on the shoulder pad, as it will show up quite nicely for this tutorial. All you want to do is just dab the paintbrush on. As you can see, the brown wash will pool. All you want to do is just add a few spots here and there and allow it to pool and dry as a starting point. You will need to go over these spots a few times, again just to add some depth and really to make it look darker. Do as many times as you deem necessary for your personal preference. And now comes the fun part. Switching to a fine detail brush, we are going to add dirt streaks coming from not only the damage in the armor, but also from armor panels as well as the previously added dirt patches. Again, we're going back to the Agrax Earth Shade. This step does not take long at all, though it does require a steady hand and makes such a big difference. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Basically, as you can see here with a fine detail brush, all we're going to do is do very light strokes, which are going to imitate, say, dirty water running down. Just ever so light strokes coming off dirt patches and in between the armor creases, as well as from the damage itself. And basically what you need to do is, after you've laid down say the track for this wash by putting down the drip mark, all you need to do is just dab over that same line lightly to allow the wash to pool, and again just to make it look darker and grittier. As mentioned before, by making dirt and grime streaks coming out of in between armor paneling, it can really give it a nice effect. As you can see here, a common area that I like to use is the lower part of the leg there. Basically, coming out of the seal, I do the exact same process as before. We just paint dirt streaks using the brown wash on the way down and just reinforce it by dabbing more wash onto them to make them darker. This really does give quite a nitty-gritty look, and it really does make the marine look like he's been out for quite some time, and really just dirt and grime has been pooling everywhere. As you can see, there's a variety of areas where this can be useful, including on the shoulder pad. Basically anywhere where there's a raised ledge or a gap or an opening, it can work really well just to give it a really dirty, grimy look. As you can see here, it really hasn't taken all that long, but it already has made a noticeable difference to the model. Now, the best part about this technique is that you really can change it to suit your personal preferences. This is a fantastic base to use. I think it looks great the way it is, but you can use it as a base to develop your own techniques and really to customize your model exactly the way you'd like it. Now, as you can see, this technique really does show up a lot better on lighter color models, although that's really to be expected. You're adding a dark dirt to a dark color, it really does dull it down a bit. Although, as you can see, still a nice effect nonetheless, and definitely worth the time. So this has been a quick tutorial, and I would like to thank you guys for watching. Hopefully it has helped you. Please comment below if it has, any suggestions or improvements, and what you'd like to see next. Thanks for watching guys, and stay tuned.